Hello everyone, we are back with a new video on algorithms and flowcharts from Unit 1. In this video, I have tried to cover up all the questions asked in question papers right from years 2008. So let's go step by step. What is an algorithm? So what is the definition of what you mean by an algorithm? In computer science, an algorithm is a finite sequence of well-defined, computer implementable, unambiguous instructions executed in a step-by-step manner, typically to solve a problem at hand in a finite amount of time. So say that you are given a problem at hand which is going to be the input, and you have an algorithm. Now an algorithm is a well-defined finite set of instructions which can be implemented on a computer because we are learning computer programming, and these set of instructions are executed step by step, not haphazard, and you arrive at solving the problem in a finite amount of time, and then you get your output, which is the solution to the problem at hand. In day-to-day life, we all follow algorithms, just that some of them may be computer implementable, some of them may be not computer implementable. But however, you follow a set of instructions to do anything. Now, surely in this lockdown, most of us have at least learned to cook Maggi. To cook Maggi, for novices, they would actually take up the Maggi packet and read the instructions behind it, and there is a step-by-step wise instruction which helps you to make Maggi by cooking it for at least 2 minutes. So making Maggi or cooking Maggi will be the problem at your hand. How are you going to solve this? You are going to follow an algorithm. You will follow a finite set of instructions, as in first you light the gas, then you're going to put the utensil on the flame, then you're going to add some water. So all this happens step by step. You just don't do everything at once, right? So you're following step by step, and this is going to be for a finite amount of time. You're not going to cook Maggi for more than 10 minutes. So that's what I mean to say, finite amount of time. So at the end of a little bit more than 2 minutes, you're going to get your cooked Maggi, and that is going to be your output. So we followed an algorithm, just that it was not a computer implementable algorithm. So my point was to tell you what I mean by an algorithm. You need to focus that they are well-defined, unambiguous, finite set of instructions executed step by step in a finite amount of time. And because we are studying computer programming, they should be computer implementable. Now, okay, let's see what are flowcharts. Flowchart is a graphical representation of an algorithm. So it gives us a graphical view of how exactly the flow of the information and the processing is going to take place. So programmers often use this as a program planning tool. The flowcharts consist of a lot of flowchart symbols. Let's see what they are. In an algorithm, we normally have a start or a stop. So these are represented by this symbol that you see on the screen. The next, connecting the different symbols in a flowchart, we have flow lines. Whenever we need to take any input or output from the user, and give out any output to the user, we demonstrate it with the help of the symbol shown. Any processing or arithmetic operations or data manipulation is shown with the help of a rectangle. Decisions to be taken if, while, all these kind of decisions will be made in the form of a rhombus. It's a diamond that you can see. This is an off-page connector. That is, if your flowchart does not fit on one page and you have to continue it on another page, you're going to make use of the off-page connector. Or if you have a flowchart which you're trying to spread across one single page and you want to continue it on another half of the page, you are going to use an on-page connector. These are demonstrated later in the video. Now let's see an algorithm to add two numbers entered by the user. So you're going to definitely start off with a start step. Now to add two numbers entered by the user, you're going to declare variables num1, num2 and sum. Num1 is to accept whatever value the user is entering in the first number, and num2 is for the second number, and then sum to compute the sum of them. Step 3, you have to accept values for variables num1 and num2. Mind you, in step 2 you only kept the containers on the gas stove or something like that. Now you are actually putting Maggi in it. So that means you have a value for that num1 and you have a value for num2. That's the value. Variables are your containers. Step 4, you are going to add num1 and num2 and assign the result to variable sum. Display sum, stop. So how are you going to represent this as a flowchart? Now when you have to start, you are going to show it with the help of this symbol. Then step 2 says declare variables. So to declare, it's like an arithmetic operation. So you are going to show it with the help of a rectangle. It's like an operation, okay? So you will have to say declare variables num1, num2 and sum. It's like a processing you're doing. Then accept the values for variables num1 and num2. Here you're reading from the user. So you're going to use a parallelogram, read num1 and num2. Now again, step 4 is again an arithmetic operation. So you are going to use a rectangle again. Sum is equal to num1 plus num2. Now display sum again is going to be something that you're going to display out to the user. So a parallelogram, and stop is shown this way. So this is going to be the flow chart to add two numbers entered by the user. Okay, so going by solving some of the important questions. The first one which comes is summation of n natural numbers. What do we mean by summation of n natural numbers? Say for example, the user entered 5. So you would do 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. You could also do 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1. And if the user entered 7, you would have to do this step. So 7 or 5 would be the user's choice, which would be n or num in this case. We would need a sum variable to keep track of the added values or the summed up values, and to hop on to the next number we would need a counter variable, and we are keeping the hops tracked by the use of the variable I. So we are doing I is equal to I plus 1. So I in this case is our counter variable. Let's see how to write the algorithm. Step 1 is start. Now usually your step 1 is going to be a start or a begin. So if you want to say start, make sure the last step is stop, and if you want to say begin, make sure the last step is end. Not a forceful measure, but it's Nice to say start and stop together and begin and end together. Step 2, declare variables I equal to 1, num and sum equal to 0. So for step 1 I have the flowchart symbol start. For step 2 I have the flowchart symbol which is a rectangle. Here you are declaring the variables num, I and sum and also assigning them. So any kind of processing, arithmetic processing, declaration, assignment, all these kind of steps go into rectangle symbols. Step 3, accept the values for variable num. So you're going to read num from the user, so you're going to make use of a parallelogram. You require a flow line here, but it'll come in here. Now step 4 says that you have to repeat a step, that is step 5, till a certain condition is met. Now a condition over here is denoted in pink. So whenever you have conditions, you have to make a point to use a rhombus or a diamond. So over here, while I is less than equal to num, now that is a deciding condition. So you're going to put it in the rhombus. Now whenever you use a rhombus, you will have two arrows compulsorily coming out of it because you're deciding something, right? So you could have a yes or you could have a no. So while it is true, the condition is true, you will be following the yes flow line. And when the condition becomes a false, you will be following the no flow line. So right now, when the condition is true, what are you going to do? You're going to do step 5. So that is written into the rectangle. So sum is equal to sum plus I is equal to I plus 1. However, step 4 said repeat. Now because you had repeat, you have to push it back to the deciding step. Then again take yes or no. So pushing it back to the deciding step is shown with the help of the pink arrow that you see over here. Now you could have just shown one line here this way and just shown one arrowhead showing the flow of the information. The moment it becomes false, it's going to come out and follow display sum. Once it's displayed the sum, it's going to stop. So with this we are done with the algorithm for summation of n natural numbers and also the flowchart. Let's see the next question, that is factorial of a number. Factorial of a number, for example say 5. To compute the factorial of a number 5, we would do 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 5 or 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. So here we need an intermediate variable, that is fact, to hold, we need an variable to hold the intermediate result, that is fact. Also a counter variable like in the previous case to do I is equal to I plus 1, or if you're starting from 5 to do minus minus. Alright, so either way you can do it. Let's see the algorithm. Start, then we have declare variables I equal to 1, num and fact equal to 1. So num is going to hold 5 like the previous case. Step 3, read, so parallelogram. Step 4 again repetition but based on a condition. So you're going to use a rhombus, yes, no, and because it's a repetition, something will be coming back to the rhombus. Step 5, make sure you have set fact equal to 1. Display fact. If the condition becomes false at any point of time, it will come out of this and come and display fact and then stop. So this is factorial of a number. Next is summation of square of n natural numbers. We already did summation of n natural numbers. So here the slight tweak will be every time you're reading the new number, you will have to square it. So if you see here, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 is all similar to what we did prior. Just that at step 5 we say sum is equal to sum plus I into I, because you're doing the square, 1 square, 2 square, 3 square, n square. That is made a note of over here. So if it is yes, you come down here, no, then you display the sum, and to make it happen several times you have to repeat it. So we are following the pink line, and then display and stop. Next is to exchange two values. Say that this is the algorithm, this is the flow chart. Now at step 2, the user has declared variables num1, num2 and temp. He also has assigned values 0 to temp. Let's say for example's sake, I assign 10 to num1 and 20 to num2. Or the user has entered at num1 and num2 10 and 20. At step 4, when I say temp is equal to num1, temp takes on the value of 10. When I say num1 is equal to num2, num1 previous value of 10 is lost and it takes on the value of 20. However, num2 is still 20. When I say num2 equal to temp, num2 loses the value of 20 and takes the value of 10. So with this I have achieved the swap, that is num1 now becomes 20 and num2 becomes 10. Initially num1 was 10 and num2 was 20. So I have to just display num1 and num2 all reading and outputting, that is inputting and outputting, are shown with the help of parallelograms. Rectangles are used for arithmetic operations, processing, declaration, assigning values. This elongated circles or stretched circles are used for your start and stop, and these are your flow lines. However, here we were not making any decision, so we do not have a rhombus. So with this we finish the algorithm and flowchart for exchanging values. Next is to check whether a number is even or odd. If I just throw you a question to check whether a number is even or odd, you would check its divisibility by 2, right? Same over here. This is the algorithm, this is the flowchart. I say start, then I declare a variable num, accept any value for it from the user, so show a parallelogram. If num mod 2 is equal to 0, I make sure that I use double equal to, and if it's a yes, the number is even. If it's a no, the number is odd. Now here you see a rhombus which has a flow line yes and which has a flow line no. However, it does not have a repeating flow line. The pink color one is absent. Once a number is even, it's decided, or if the number is odd, it's decided. Both of them arrive at stop. So step 5, step 6, step 7 shown over here. Next, let's see summation of digits of a number. To help us do this, let's figure out one small concept or clear the cloud over a small concept. When I say 5 division 10, what exactly is happening? It says 5 goes in here, 10 goes in here, right? We try to do the division, we get a remainder. The quotient is 0 and the remainder is 5. So if you perform an operation saying 5/10, you get quotient, that is 0 in this case. But if at any point of time you wanted to extract the remainder, then you would have to say 5 mod 10, that is 5 mod 10, that is the percentage sign. Then in that case you would get 5. So remember, if you do numerator / denominator, you would get the quotient. If you get numerator percentage sign denominator, you would get the remainder. Let's see another example. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Division operation 10. In this case, the quotient is 5432 and the remainder is 1. Also, if you see, 1 is the last digit. So anytime you want to extract the last digit of a number, you always perform a modulo by 10. So to get 1, we would have to do 54321 mod 10, and to get the number itself reduced by one digit, we would have to do 54321 divide 10. So keeping these two processes in mind, let's move on further. Split digits of a number. Say the number is 54321. To extract 1, consider the number 54321. How to obtain 1? To obtain 1, we make use of a remainder variable and say the number, that is this number, mod 10. We would get 1. Now how to obtain 5432 from 54321? Since next time we have to extract 2. In this case, we do the forward slash, that is a division operation. Here we are doing modulo operation. So we do number is equal to number divide 10 forward slash 10. See the difference. So the next time to extract 2, I have the shortened number ready, that is 5432. So now from 5432, how can we extract 2? We do 5432 mod 10. And if we do divide 10, we again reduce 5432 to a new number 543. So if you go on doing these steps in repetition till the number exists, that is number not equal to 0 or number still greater than 0, you would come to some conclusion. So let's see how to do it. Start. Declare variables num, sum, digit equal to 0. Accept any value for variable num. You would have to do some steps, that is a step 5, in repetition till the number still exists. Now you see what I mean by number still exists. This number, if you go on dividing, at a point will become 5 and at a point may become 0 also. So you can only extract digits till the number exists. So this is the step to extract the digits. This is the digit extraction. This is reducing the number, and this is every time you extract a digit, add it to sum to find the sum of the digits. Eventually you will display sum and then stop. Let's see step by step. Say that the number is 543. So at iteration 1, say that you have accepted at step 3 543. Okay. So num, sum, digit are your containers or your variables. Values for them are 543. Sum is right now 0 and digit is 0. It's a step 4. Does a number exist? Yes. 543 is greater than 0. Then repeat step 5. Step 5 says digit is equal to num mod 10. So what will you get? 3, because you are extracting the last one, 3. Now you have to make sure that you do num is equal to num divide 10 to get the quotient, that is to reduce the number. So next time you can extract 4. So you will get 54. And if you do sum is equal to sum plus digit, you will get 3. However, you have to still go on doing this because the number is still greater than 0. So next iteration, number is 54, sum is 3, digit is 3. You will check step 4 because this is still greater than 0. So you will repeat 5. On repeating 5, you will get these values. You will extract 4 now. Now 54 becomes 5 because you are reducing the number, and now the sum of the digit. First time you had extracted 3, then you extracted 4. So 4 plus 3, 7. Then the third iteration, because the number is still existing. So now the digit is 5. Now the number becomes 0 and the sum of the digits is 12 because 7 plus the last digit 5 becomes 12. Now you check whether the step 4 is true. Num is greater than 0? No. So it's going to come to step 6, and then you'll say stop. Okay, so let's see the flow chart. The flow chart over here, I've excluded step 1. I've started from step 2, start and stop. Step 2 is shown with the help of rectangle, then you're reading the number. Now you have a rhombus to check whether the num is greater than 0, or you could have even said while num greater than 0. This if could have been changed with the help of a while. It would be technically right to write the while here, because while this condition is true, you're going into a repetition step. So while decision making, is num greater than 0? Yes or a no? If it is a yes, you do these steps. Find the digit, reduce the number, compute the sum of the digit. Go in a loop. Repeat it till eventually it becomes a no and falls out. Then you go to this display sum and then stop. So this is going to be the flow chart for sum of the digits. So you say start, then you declare variables num, remainder equal to 0, and reverse number is equal to 0. So I have done that here. Accept values for them. So 543. Now because of this 0 0, it's 0 and 0 here. Now step 4 says till number still exists, that is till number is greater than 0. Repeat step 5, else go to step 6. You could have done this in the previous algorithm also. I think we missed out on this, else go to step 6. So step 5 says digit is equal to, you're extracting the digit, you're reducing the number, you're building on the reverse number slowly. Right now reverse number is 0. Okay, then you're saying, so say for example you have num is equal to 543. Running step 4, digit will be extracted to 3. Num will be reduced to 54. Reverse number has to be 3. Then once more you next iteration, because this number still exists and number is greater than 0, you're repeating step 5. Digit is 4. Num is reduced to 5 from 54, and reverse number is now built as 34. Please understand, this was 3, this is 3 into 10 plus 4, so 34. The formula is here, and the next time, since number still exists and is greater than 0, the number is 5, so 5 is the digit. Number now becomes 0 because you're reducing slowly, and you build as 345. Now if you go to check, number is equal to 0. Now since number is equal to 0 and the number is not greater than 0, you will have to stop. So you'll have to just display this reverse number and stop. The flowchart for reverse of a number is shown as a part of palindrome check, because there also we need to compute reverse. So I have shown it in the palindrome, so you may check out the palindrome and then devise a separate one for reverse of a number if you may need to. So going ahead, check whether a number is a palindrome. So 12321 is a palindrome because if you reverse 12321, you will still get 12321. So if the original number is equal to the reverse number, it is called as a palindrome. Now over here we start off, then we have two steps: declare variables num, remainder and reverse number. Then step 3, you have to accept the values for the variable num. So say I took 545. Now till the number exists, right, we have to go on reading that number, extracting its last digit, like whatever we did for the previous algorithm, and then that is these steps, and build on the number slowly, that is reverse number. Once we build, that is step 4 fails, we come to step 6. So over here in step 6, we check whether the number that we have built up in reverse number is equal to the number that existed in num. Then in that case, we display that it is a palindrome, else it's not a palindrome. So we have a number, the number is 545, extracted the digit, it is 3, you reduced it, it became 54, and then you built on it, it became 5 at the first time. Then slowly you repeated, it became 54. Then again you repeated, it became 545. But there's a problem here. The problem is, if you go to check at step 6, you are comparing reverse number with number, and your number has reduced to 0. So even if it is a palindrome, it will not display it's a palindrome, because you had not taken care of putting this num into an empty container for check later. Because if you check on num has reduced itself to 0 because you were doing operations on num. Eventually if you go to check it with 545, you are doing 0, you are doing 545 equal to 0 at step 6. You are not doing 545 equal to 545. So you will, the answer will come out as not palindrome. So you will have to correct that. See, here it is shown. So how do we correct it? So you will have to make use of a new variable num for check equal to 0. Now this is only to dump your 545 in it and keep, so that later for check the original value still remains. Step 3, accept variable value for variable num, that is 545, and assign this 545 in num for check and keep. Then repeat those steps in the previous slide as shown. Eventually you will arrive at a check that is now possible, that is 545 equal to 545. So you will get number is a palindrome. So start rectangle, read the number, assign while num still exists, yes. If it is yes, you do this and continue doing it in repetition. If it is a no, check if. If it is a yes, number is palindrome. If it is a no, number is not palindrome, and both arrive at a stop. So this is the algorithm and flowchart for palindrome check. Now if you see over here, my algorithm fitted in one page. However, sometimes the entire flowchart does not fit on one page. You may have to divide the page and put half of it on the other half of the page. In that case, you will use something called as connectors. When one flowchart is written or drawn across two halves of the page, so this is the first half, I use a connector and make sure I repeat that on the other half of the page. So this circle with A on it and then the A continued shows that this is an on-page connector. You are on the same page, you are continuing with the remaining flowchart on the other half of the page. Whereas the 4 shows that this is an off-page connector. The circle is an on-page, that is A, and 4 is a off-page connector. See over here also. So off-page connectors help you continue the flowchart on the other page. So since you given 4, it will look out for 4 on the other page. Since you given A here, it will look out for A over here. So with this, I have come to the end of algorithms and flowcharts. Thank you. Hope you have a good day.